What I will say is what happened between Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell is in many ways very odd and in many ways unprecedented, where we see a defendant that's being convicted of sex trafficking essentially allowed to present a version of offence after that conviction almost totally unchallenged. And in that long conversation with Blanche, she seemed to, partly exonerate many of these figures, including President Trump. So to say the least, it was a very unprecedented situation.
Now, a memoir by Virginia Giuffre, who claimed she was sexually assaulted by Prince Andrew and the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein, will be published posthumously in October. Virginia Giuffre took her life in April. How many more details can we now expect? Josie Ensor is the chief US reporter for The Times, who's been looking at this story hard. Hello to you, Josie.
Hello.
Josie, so I read this is a multi-million-dollar publishing deal, and Josie, it's easy to see why.
Yes, I mean, Virginia Giuffre has been at the center of all the allegations against Epstein. And in many ways, almost everything we know about the Epstein case comes from either Virginia Giuffre herself or through the various lawsuits and settlements that she agreed over the years. So she really is key to all of this, and alleged that she was trafficked by Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to many of their high-profile friends, including, she alleges, Prince Andrew.
And there's going to be so much attention as soon as this book appears on how far she goes towards naming names.
Yes, I mean, for those of us who are paying attention, she has named a lot of names over the years in various lawsuits, some of which we're able to repeat, some of which we aren't. But I know that the publishers and her PR have worked very, very closely with lawyers to figure out what they can get into this book and what will still be prohibited from being public.
Right, and so much attention on Andrew, Prince Andrew, of course, who we all know was beneficiary of a multi-million-pound settlement. Cost anything upwards of £3 million. That was the son's figure. Well, now she is dead. What constraints live on, as it were, Josie, into what can appear in this book where Andrew's concerned?
Yeah, so she never spoke out again after the 2022 settlement. And there were rumors that part of the agreement was that she effectively signed an NDA. There were rumors that it would last in perpetuity. Some said that it was just going to be a couple of years. I think that there are different legal obligations now that she's died, and this is being published posthumously. And I think that there is hope that they'll get a lot more in. What I understand is that a lot of this book kind of takes from a previously unpublished memoir that Virginia wrote by herself. And this was called The Billionaire's Playboy Club. So she details in quite graphic, lurid detail allegations that she made against Prince Andrew. So we have one about her meeting Prince Andrew at Epstein's townhouse in New York, and Prince Andrew walks into the room and they play this guessing game with Ghislaine Maxwell, where she apparently asks the prince, guess how old she is, which was apparently one of the favorite games. But apparently he correctly guessed that she was 17 years old at the time. So a lot of what could be published in the book, we can draw and look at the allegations that were made by Virginia herself in this memoir that she wrote in the years before her death. The Times, obviously, we have seen a lot of Virginia's writing. We saw her diaries. We published an exclusive story on what was contained in her diaries back in July. And what I would say is that from reading her private diaries and from speaking to her family and people who knew her, that she was an incredibly compelling writer. But not just that, she has this incredible clarity of thought and this recall of detail. So both in her diaries and in this memoir, we see like incredible detail from dates to conversations that were had about the abuse that she allegedly suffered at the hands of Prince Andrew.
Okay, now the living person who knows a great deal about Epstein is now serving 20 years. It's Ghislaine Maxwell, of course. And just as President Trump is so keen to leave this story behind, we saw the Trump administration lawyer, talking to Ghislaine Maxwell, as it were, behind bars. And she did, by the way, after that, seem to gain certain benefits in her treatment in jail, didn't she?
She certainly did. So the history of it, for those of us who are paying attention, Trump's DOJ urged the Supreme Court to reject her appeal. We then see this publication of details about Trump's relationship with Epstein. She then is moved from her medium security prison to an effective prison camp with open open fences in Texas. And then we have this meeting between Todd Blanche, who's obviously Trump's former personal lawyer, and an old friend, a lawyer friend of his, David Marcus, who's representing Ghislaine Maxwell. And Maxwell has this hours-long, 2-day conversation with Blanche that was released. The transcript was released late on Friday. So we get an incredible amount of detail from what Ghislaine claims she did and didn't know about Epstein's abuse.
Yeah, and there is, I guess, or there will be a good deal of speculation about whether Ghislaine Maxwell is given a presidential pardon, because is the question settled on whether she'll give evidence to a congressional committee?
Yes, so her lawyers were trying to argue that she should be given immunity from any further prosecution in return for speaking to the committee. I mean, she may be useful, she may speak. She's also entitled to claim the Fifth Amendment, which means that she doesn't have to answer their questions. I mean, she's one of many people that are going to be testifying before the Oversight Committee in the next few weeks. So we just had Bill Barr, we're going to have former President Bill Clinton, and I don't expect her to say anything beyond what she did say. And what I will say is what happened between Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell is in many ways very odd and in many ways unprecedented, where we see a defendant that's being convicted of sex trafficking essentially allowed to present a version of offence after that conviction almost totally unchallenged. And in that long conversation with Blanche, she seemed to, partly exonerate many of these figures, including President Trump. So to say the least, it was a very unprecedented situation.
Indeed. Josie Ensor, Chief US Reporter for The Times. Thank you so much.
In 1990, I had come over to New York to help look at some of that. He was having some advertising issues with the New York Daily News, and in fact, I may have met Donald Trump at that time because my father was friendly with him and liked him very much. And I think it should be said that he also very much liked this notion that he blackmailed men. We don't really have to go there, that he wasn't a businessman and that everything he did was a fraud or a thunk or whatever. I don't believe that to be true.
Why?
Sorry?
Why do you? So you say you don't believe it to be true, but show me why you think that.
Okay.
Just from I know you've been talking about it, that he was very conscientious. He was very good at math. He paid a lot of attention to his clients. But yes, you're right. There's allegations of blackmail, or also that there was some level of fraud involved in what he did, and you don't believe it. Why do you say that?
Well, let me rephrase that. If there was fraud, I never saw it. What I saw or what I felt when I ran that office. I was responsible for the staff. People worked. There were lawyers. There were accountants. I never heard him. I never felt anything. Icky.
And you mentioned that in the very beginning of the conversation, you mentioned President Trump in the early 90s.
Yes.
What did you observe as far as President Trump and his relationship with you or Mr. Epstein?
Well, I just want to say for my relationship with President Trump, relationship's a big word, but I just want to say that I met him, or I believe I may have, because of my father in the 90s.
Yep. Okay.
So my father liked him very much, and he really liked his wife as well, because they were both Czechoslovakian. And as far as I'm concerned, President Trump was always very cordial and very kind to me. And I just want to say that I admire his extraordinary achievement in becoming the president now, and I like him, and I've always liked him. So that is the sum and substance of my entire relationship with him.
What about Mr. Epstein's relationship with him?
I don't know how they met, and I don't know how they became friends. I certainly saw them together, and I remember the few times I observed them together that they were friendly.
Was
they
that
seemed
in
friendly.
social settings, or was that in private settings?
I believe I only ever saw them in social settings. I don't recall any private settings.
Did you ever observe President Trump receive a massage?
Never.
Did you ever observe? You said that have you seen there's photographs, public photographs of Mr. Epstein and President Trump together?
Yes.
and there's photographs of, I think you're in some of the photographs
Yes.
as well. Those all appear to be social settings.
Yes, that's my memory. There were social settings. I don't know Epstein's, if he had, whatever the nature of the president's friendship, if you will, or however you want to define that with Epstein, I was never witness. I think they were friendly, like people are in social settings. I don't think they were close friends, or I certainly never witnessed the president in any of, I don't recall ever seeing him in his house, for instance. I actually never saw the president in any type of massage setting. I never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. In the times that I was with him, he was a gentleman in all respects.
When's the last time you think you saw in person President Trump?
It's been a long time. Probably not. Sometime in the beginning, mid 2000s maybe, and it would only have been a social setting, as far as I recall.
And did you ever hear Mr. Epstein or anybody say that President Trump had done anything inappropriate with masseuses or with anybody in your world?
Absolutely never.
And
in any context.
There's been a lot of conversations about whether Mr. Epstein maintained like a list of people, like a book of famous people that he knew, it's called a black book or a client list or a list. Did you know of the existence of any such list?
There is no list. We'll start with that. The genesis of that story I can actually trace for you from its absolute inception, if that is what you're interested in.
Well, first, you know, to be sure, there is no list, there's no client list, nothing like that.
No, there is nothing like that.
That you know.
That I, obviously.
Right.
Yeah. So that narrative that was created and then built upon and it just mushroomed into what, basically this is like a Salem witch trial. People go and lost their minds for this thing. I understand that. But the issue is, how do you satisfy a mob who can't understand the lifestyle because it's like P. Diddy in Redux on TV with Clintons and Trump? I mean, it's bananas. And while some of it is real, he did do those things. I'm definitely not disputing that. But this was a man, he didn't even believe he had a real business. I happen to believe he did. Did he grip? I don't know, because I wasn't really in his business. But this is a one man. He's not some, they've made him into this, he's not that interesting. He's a disgusting guy who did terrible things to young kids. You're not going to hear me say what he did to people who are over the age of 18. I'm sorry, I'm not going to go there. That's just not what I'm here to